carbon fibre skinning. I was going to say this is the first time I've done it, but I've done it over the last week and it is not as easy as they say. This is what I did, the carbon hugger. Can you see it in there? You have to sand it down with 120 grit, really rough, and then with a scalpel cut all the corners. Now the mistake I made before, though I took it off the baseboard when I painted it, it was very fragile. It was on cups and blocks and everything else, so it moved, and if this end touches, the drips form and you cannot get rid of them. I also found you've got to be really, really careful. You drop one drip of resin, you can't get it off very easily at all without causing all sorts of problems. So the hugger I get away with. The imperfections I see are very minor, but they're there and you don't see them. This will be seen a lot more. So it was useful just doing that part. Let's see how this one turns out. I've made this time a little baseboard up from some spare MDF and some threaded rod so that the thing is firm. It really is important to me. All the holes, like in here, I have to fill with modelling clay. And I didn't do that before, so again, I'm realising what you have to do. So I've just been into one of the craft hobby shops and bought some modelling clay that, according to the instructions, only sets at 110 degrees. So, because I don't want it to set. So let's start with this. It's so much better mounted on a board. Now look at these tricky ones. I don't know how this is going to work. Do I do them one at a time? Maybe. Did you ever like playing with plasticine as a kid? This is very therapeutic. I think I'm getting in the swing of it now. I just do one at a time. So now I'm going to mix up the resin. This is the first coat, which has got a black pigment in it to cover whatever colour the part that you're going to skin. I think I need about 50 grams. It's a little bit of guesswork, but I found when I did the hugger you don't need as much as you think you need. This all comes from a company called Easy Composites, XCR, and they're really good. I need the black resin and I need the hardener, and everything is 1:3, and it's got to be accurate. I happen to have accurate scales that I use for some more work, but you can buy digital scales, or you could even use the ones from your kitchen, digital scales. They need to be, the mixture needs to be within a gram or two, so you've got to be quite accurate, so they say. So they give you a little chart on their instructions that are on YouTube, and 50 grams, it's only, save you calculating, 37 grams of resin. So this is the black resin, which I've got to shake up to get the pigment mixed up, and I need 37 grams of this. 37.3, and I need 13 grams of hardener. So set it back to 0. .1, and then on one of their sticks you mix it for 2 to 3 minutes, slowly but thoroughly, and you've really got to get it mixed well around the edges. Wipe off the stick. If you get any patches of the hardener not mixed with the resin, I tell you, you've got a problem. So you notice that the resin it goes a long, long way. You just take your time. Now the laying of the carbon fibre. You just got to feel it. And there's more contours than you realise. So with the hole, I tried cutting with a scalpel before. That does not work. I've just got to get the edges in. I don't think there's a lot more I can do. It's just a question of making sure there's no pockets of air that's not touching the resin itself. When I did the hugger, I had some gaps in the edge, and you can't do anything about it once the resin is set. So I'm trying to get these edges tight in. Well, everything's had 3 hours, and I realised I could coat these tonight, which would save a whole day, because by tomorrow it will have had its 8 hours instead of wasting a whole day tomorrow. What I'm going to do now is mix up the epoxy coating resin, which is purple, something to do with UV, and hardener, 1 to 3 again. When you mix it, this goes from purple to brown, and when it dries it's totally clear. And the same thing, you can see how it's purple. You watch how quickly it changes to brown. And we mix it 2 to 3 minutes, just slowly. So it's firm on its stand. I'm going to start with the edges so that I can really brush in and not get any drips. We're now at session 3. So the first session, key the surface and mix a base coat with black, put on the carbon fibre 2 hours later and leave for 3 hours. And then session 2, mix and apply the first clear coat, which I did yesterday, and leave for 8 hours. So it's dried overnight and it's solid. And it really is solid. And there's a little pool in the middle to take the BMW badge whenever it comes. Session 3, we mustn't stop. We have to have a whole day for this, really. Because first of all, we've got to denib it, take off any little bits, sand it with 120 grit all over, and apply one clear coat. When that's sticky in 2 hours' time, apply another clear coat, and when that's sticky in 2 hours after that, apply a final clear coat, and then leave it 8 hours. So today is every 2 hours, 6 hours to do this side, and you mustn't mess it up. You can only do this if you can do it in one go. If it goes too far, you've had it. And that means we can then wait and we do a final sand of 120 grit, 240 grit, and give it one final clear coat and leave it another 8 hours. So it's a long process. So today we're just doing session 3, denibbing and sanding. I'll leave it on its stand while I can sand with 120 the flat areas. I've now come to mix for the first of 3 coats. I'm going to try 30 grams of resin. I'll zero again. Done exactly. Mix again, 2 to 3 minutes. And you'll see the purple exactly as before change quite quickly to brown. So this is the first of 3 coats. Again, no runs, no drips, just very good gloss painting. Four hours have now passed since the first coat, so I didn't film the second coat because it's all identical, but this is the third coat. This is the final coat of this part. It's just sticky, has to be sticky apparently, otherwise this coat of resin, the same as the second, will not stick to the previous coat of resin. So this has dried well overnight, and now I have to start with 120 grit. That beautiful gloss you now see is going to soon be destroyed. We do 120 grit, 240 grit, wash it and dry it, and apply one final coat of resin before the next stage. So that's the 120 grit. Now we go on to the 240. And that gets rid of a lot of the 120 sanding marks. So the final sanding's been done. It seems very, very smooth. It's hard to tell, isn't it? Like this. At this stage now, I've got to open up all the holes. I'm not sure how you do this. So now we use a Dremel. Very carefully. And now with a needle file, I need to go down each one, even them out. This is now the final coat. Not the final part, because there's a lot of sanding and polishing after this, but this is the final coat of resin, and the instructions say make it thinner or make it thin. In other words, no drips, no runs, nothing. So I'm going to do the edges first. I must say, this makes you want to carbon fibre every part of your bike. This is the last stage. It's had all its coats of resin. It looks incredibly shiny and it won't do for long because I've got to sand it with lots of different sandpapers. But if you look at it very carefully in the light, you can see dust and bits and spots and everything everywhere. So it all has to be flattened down. We start with 400 grit and we eventually end up at 1200 grit. But with water this time. Not that you'll see any difference, but this is now 600, and you see I can see scratches from the 400. So gradually each finer sandpaper or emery paper, wet and dry, should rub out those scratches. I think that's the idea anyway. Though it doesn't look any different, but I'm now on 800 grit. And you feel as if you're sanding with normal, just plain paper. But you know it's doing something. Very, very finely taking out any of the previous sandpaper scratch marks. Hardly causes any noise, is it, compared to the other grits? Finally, I'm on the 1200 grit, and I'm glad they make one side a different colour than the other, otherwise I don't think you'd know which side to sand with. I will say that between each grit I just dry it down, and it is getting smoother and smoother. You feel you're not doing anything, but you really are. And little imperfections I've seen, they're all disappearing. I can't see any scratches so Easy Composites are telling you right. You just got to take your time. It's all in the preparation. It's all the labour. So that's the 1200 sanding done, and I will say it's just so smooth now. I'm not really sure what this cutting compound does apart from cut, but it seems so smooth anyway. But I'll do what I'm told. And they say this cuts any final little sandpapering or emery papering marks off the product. I suppose I need something on it. Let me just try with some car polish I have. It's going to need something to polish, I imagine. Well, that's come out with a really good gloss. I'm so pleased with that. That's much better. I feel like taking the hugger off and giving it another go now. Now in this moulding was a black and white BMW badge, but it's moulded, so the carbon fibre would cover that. So I managed to buy one on metal one on eBay for £4 something, but it was concave. It was is concave the right word? Anyway, it bows. So I put it level and filled it with resin. So I've got a flat surface now. Otherwise it would only stuck with the edge. So that goes there. I don't know how to stick it down. Really, I could do with. I've got some brilliant super glue. I was going to stick it with resin, but I wondered whether to try it with super glue because I don't want it coming off. So I've got to get it in the right position. And it's got a protective sheet on it. And isn't that immaculate? If it'll stay on there.